Hi, I'm Tombra Hark. I am the host of You Are You Symposium and our new podcast. And I'm the founder of New Wisdom. New Wisdom is essentially a wisdom school or a mystery school teaching living skills for accessing and living from wisdom beyond our personal connection to our day-to-day lives and also enriched by that which is our everyday life. So this is the first class that I'm offering through New Wisdom on URU, and I'm thrilled to bring you one of my favorite topics to teach, but also one of my favorite tools and techniques for connecting with soul, for accessing guidance, for finding answers to questions we may have, to listening to what we might think of as right timing or divine timing, which is often quite different than what we think it should be. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to talk you through a very specific hands-on kind of class, but also inspired. So, because, that's how I roll. We're going to talk about how do you ask for and then also remember dreams. Ways that your dreams speak to you. This will be a big portion of today's class. Practices on how you can then work with your dreams, given that you're now getting an understanding or deepening your understanding of how they speak to you. You'll also be playing around with how to read the symbols and messages of the dreams. So that's kind of an expansion on practices for working with them. And all through this, we'll be weaving from an understanding that this is a mind, body, heart, and soul wisdom that is expressing through your dreams to you. So here we go. Are you ready? I've been teaching dream work in some way or another for, I think, 25 years. I think my first class was using meditation, and no, it was earlier than that. So we're going to say close to 30 years I've been working with this topic and continue to learn and grow even in my own experience. And I think that's part of what tapping into wisdom actually entails, is the suspension of I've learned that, I know that, I've got it down, I'm good, can't teach me anymore, sit. Okay, no, that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is tapping into universal wisdom through your dreams. So there's always an expansion. Just as you were not the same person you were a year ago, what you may have assessed from a dream that you worked deeply a year ago may not have the same understanding and meaning to you today. I'll give you an example of that for myself. I had a dream, I think it was in 97 or 98. And in the dream, I was, maybe it was a little later than that, 2000 maybe. I was walking up to get a tour of my new house. And I was with one other person, and we were walking toward the front door, and we saw a path that went around the house to the side and back of the house. So it was just a different approach to see the tour. And as we came around the house, there was a fountain, and right alongside the house, and there were rolling green hills and trees about. And at the bottom of the rolling green hills and trees, it continued to roll down and eventually land at the water. Now that's simply the setting for the dream. Now, in 2012, so at least 12 years after that dream, I moved to a house where I live now, where I'm sitting right now. And while I had worked with that dream and I accessed deep understandings of richness from it for community, for sacred bonding, for coming together in celebration and in initiation, and baptismal energy was in this dream. and new life was in this dream. So I had worked this beautifully and richly, and for the shadow elements as well as the insights and beauty. In 2013, I'm sitting in my backyard having been working rather hard at building a new patio for our fire pit. And I sat down kind of exhausted and sweating and catching my breath, taking a rest, and there was an umbrella pitched so I could sit in the shade of the umbrella. And in that moment, perhaps in that little bit of delirium of exhaustion, I had a flashback of the dream, and I realized I was sitting in the same place the dream was set. That when you approach the front of my house and you come around the side, you can come into view of the round fountain and the rolling green hill and the trees scattered about. I had not known that this was the house from the dream. It had never dawned on me. And so I'm saying this to share with you that sometimes our dreams take a very long time in our cognitive ways of structuring time and manifestation. But also that who I was then did not dream this, did not envision living here. It was not something I was working toward. I think it was on many levels a prognostic dream to show me a life that would unfold. So that's part of why I hope that whatever you know about dreaming, that you bring it to the table and you also suspend any limitations that may come. So one of the things that I hear most often, and I've written to you about this before, is the question of, okay, how do I work with my dreams if I can't remember them? Or, I don't dream. So we all dream, and we all have different ways in which we can access the memory of the dreaming world. I'm going to give you some of the tried and true. You've probably heard them. You've maybe practiced some of these tools. First of all, I'm going to say, if you've been saying, I don't dream, you are creating the setting in which not to remember or access the deep wisdom and possibility your dreams infuse your life with. So if you want them, you may want to first look at that very limiting, clarifying statement that says, I don't dream, and changing the language to a way that starts to open it up for you. So perhaps it's simply a matter of changing the language to, I haven't had the experience yet of remembering my dreams. You might have to get super loose and playful with it that way. You might also say, I'm discovering how I dream and how I remember and tap into my dreams. I'm learning how. I'm open now. So you can start, however, is the next step along the path that brings you into an openness for it. Dreams require, I believe, I'm checking in to see if this is true, I do believe that being able to tap into the wisdom that lives through your dreams, through the language of the soul spoken in your dreams, it requires an openness, a receptivity, a curiosity on your part. So that's number one for how you ask and remember your dreams. You start with some curiosity, some receptivity, some anticipation. And then we can take those things into, like, what do you do with them? So if you're curious about your dreams, you can start by asking questions. Ideal time to do this, as you may have heard, is just as you're falling asleep. That they call it the hypnagogic state. Just as you're drifting into sleep, you can ask a question, and the question might be a request to remember a dream. Now, what do you do when the dream comes? I highly recommend a journal of some sort. This isn't my dream journal, but a journal of some sort, and a pen or pencil or crayon or whatever you're going to be able to turn to, possibly in the dark, and document what captures from the dream. It doesn't have to be told like a movie script or the great novel. What you want to capture is feeling, setting, um, sensation, symbol, um, and story. But often the story will come as you remember those other pieces. So whatever you can, even in a very sleepy state, be able to journal down, very helpful. If your journal's not nearby or a writing implement's not nearby, that becomes very hard to do. By the time you walk out of the room, you have now changed your state of consciousness, and being able to capture that which was there just dissolves essentially. So those are a few quick tricks that are tips that I'll give you about that. There's plenty of information about how to ask for and remember your dreams. Those are a few that I want to offer you to start with. Now into the juicy parts. Oh, one other thing. Whatever you do remember, whatever you wake up with, remain curious. Practice openness and receptivity. One of the quickest ways that I see people close down the dream movement, right, in the relationship between that state and who you are in your waking state, the way to close that down is to say, it doesn't mean anything. I don't get it. It was just one thing. I've heard this many times. I have a really, really close friend who has a real challenge trying to remember his dreams, but some of that was by his expectations because he heard other people's dreams that were these, huge stories and unfoldments, and his were simple, like a buoy in the sea or a yellow shower curtain. Now, when he first told me the shower curtain dream, that was it, and that was all he would say, and he was frustrated and disappointed and thought his dreams sucked, basically. And that energy, that kind of response is part of the dream because that's the way you're responding to it. And it stops your access to what might else exist for you. So carry on that practice. It's a beautiful practice for all kinds of relationships, but certainly with your own soul. All right, so let's go on to ways dreams speak to you. So one of the things that I love about dream work is that it's not literal. It's not physical in the same way that we identify ourselves in this very, like, I can pick up this rock and I can say this rock is in my hand. In a dream, I might have the dream of picking up a rock and putting it in my hand, and that's part of the dream. But then I also have the symbol of a rock. And then this rock actually has a symbol in it. Can you see that? It has a Mobius thread going on there with the infinity symbol. So I have two symbols here. I have a symbol of a rock, and I have a symbol that's in the rock. And those are both important pieces to the integration of the wisdom from the dream. Some of the ways that I find people get stuck here is when there are people or places, experiences in the dream that are similar but different, or just similar or familiar. So my sweetheart, I won't say a lot about this because it's his story, but one of the things that he'll say when he has a dream is like, it's so weird. Like that can't happen, or that didn't happen. Or I was working in this one place. I hear this from a lot of people, and I find I do this too when I'm telling the dream to somebody that I want to add clarifications, and clarifications take away from the dream. So there's ways that if we have a dream with someone we know, which is very common, that we can get confused by. There's the dream image of the person, they're symbolic, And then there's the person you know, your mother, your friend, your partner, your cat, your boss, right? So there's somebody that you know, maybe your second grade teacher shows up in a dream. And then there's the symbol of who they are here. So when you're looking at the dream, to look at it and say, that person over there, my second grade school teacher, she would never say those things that person said in the dream. Again, we've closed off the energy when we did this. So if you're practicing a way to tap into the wisdom, you want to look for, how's this dream speaking to me? Who is this teacher? What does she look like? Or he? My second grade school teacher wasn't a she. What does this school teacher look like? What does it mean to me? What are associations I have with second grade, with school teacher, with my memories of this person? How might I describe the person that I knew so that I can get a sense of what this symbol is? Just like when I pick this up and I say, oh, it's a rock. I could just say, it's a rock. Of course, I don't do that very often because I'm like, it's a rock and look at it. I have quite a few rocks around me right now. So there's, I could look at the rock and say, oh, it's a rock. I could look at the person and say, oh, it's that second grade school teacher. But I could also look then at, what is the second grade school teacher as a symbol to me? So it might become, she was stern and creative, and she seemed to be able to see the something special in every single one of us in the classroom. So now I might say, oh, so this person that's showing up here is a teacher. That's an archetype. That's a symbol in itself. Second grade, 7, 8 years old, relating to this character. So I might now know that I'm in a young place in myself. You following me here with this metaphor of a dream? Which dream is a metaphor? Then you can be saying, oh, and so this teacher to this young part of myself, maybe 7 or 8 years old, is an embodiment of something I also know to be stern and creative, and can see something special in me and in everyone here. Now I can say, oh, what's the teacher saying in the dream? So we kind of slowly weave this web or tapestry between this world, this real life world we think we know, and our material, like human experience, into this metaphoric, symbolic world of the dream, and we weave them together so that we get the bits and pieces of the symbol speaking to us from here. I'll give you an example of that. About 20 years ago, this fall, gosh, it really was, 20 years ago this October, I had a dream. I was newly split up from a relationship with a man whose name was Manuel, and which is fitting to the dream, so that you'll get that in a second. And I woke up from the dream and I began to write it. I was laying in the bed and I'm writing the dream, and the dream is, I'm in this room with a group of people, and Manuel walks into the room and I see him. And he doesn't appear to see me, or maybe he's ignoring me. I can't tell which. And he continues to walk through the room, and as he walks by over here, he walks in front of a projection screen TV, which used to be a thing, right? A projection screen TV, and he becomes inside the TV. So I'm writing this dream, and I could make it about Manuel, but it wasn't about Manuel. It was about this idea that this person whose name kind of means the man, the man. The man is a projection. And what I knew by working with this dream was that I had been projecting a story about who a man was, who any man was, and what he would see in me, or how he would be with me, or me with him. And I could see the entanglement that had led to the ending of that relationship. And I could see this new way that wasn't outside my awareness. Of course, if you studied any kind of concept of projection, the idea like, oh, of course he's a projection. Of course he is. But the dream was showing me that it was an invitation for me to take the projection in and to explore and discover what the man within is. And in that moment, as I wrote that dream, I recognized myself being called into a very long initiation, long by our standards of immediate gratification. And I began a 1-year monastic life practice where my entire year was dedicated to integrating him. Not that man, but the masculine that lived within me. And discovering my relationship. Who is this man? Who is this no man whatsoever? Who is this masculine identity that lives within me? This masculine energy. And what is the feminine and the masculine doing with each other in their dance? At the end of a year, I knew a year wasn't over, because I knew the ritual wasn't over, because my dreams were guiding me through the entire experience. At the end of 2 years, I knew the ritual was not over. At the end of 3 years, I started to see the dreams were telling me that it's coming close. They're almost there. And by the end of the 4th year, actually in the months before the end of the 4th year, it became very clear that the initiation was complete. I followed my dreams through all of this. I have drawings and journals that demonstrate so much of it. and I couldn't be more grateful for what has birthed in my life for this experience. And your dreams may not do anything of the sort. Like, please don't think that I'm suggesting that if you listen to a dream, you'll go through a 4-year monastic life. You probably won't. It's probably not your calling, because it's not everybody's calling. It was mine as a means by which to grow into another evolution of my soul's expression. So dreams speak to us in symbolic ways. That's really the story here. And practices for how you can work with dreams, I just gave you a few ideas. I want to watch our time, because I really do want to keep our class at a reasonable time frame so you can really embrace this. And we'll probably put this up as a podcast as well. Practices for how you can work with dreams. Let me think if there's any others. Yes. All right, one of my favorite ways to work with symbol, with soul, with integrating wisdom is through embodiment. So you can do this by yourself. It's exquisite to have a sacred space. It's also exquisite to have a sacred space with trusted others, and possibly to be witnessed. Sometimes people do things like this in coaching and in therapy and in special various types of movement practices, like authentic movement. But there are lots of ways to do this. So perhaps let's say you have a dream with a character you're kind of familiar with, like maybe, I have one. I had a dream with Robert Redford in it. No, he wasn't my love interest. He was having a meeting out on a patio with a couple of other people, and there was a way that he held his body. and you've probably seen him hold his body this way too, as I have, that he stood at the edge of the patio and he had his hands like just slightly into his pockets. He had on blue jeans. And his shoulders were down and back a little bit. And he was looking out over the fence to a prairie, I think. Now, when I started to work with the dream, it was, in some ways kind of confusing because, like I said earlier, there's the person that you kind of know, like this person in your life. Robert Redford's not my personal life, but I have a story about who he is. And that's not who's in the dream. He's a placeholder in the dream. But he had a body posture. He had a way that he held his body. Just imagine that you're standing, literally standing, and placing your feet on the ground and your hips settled down underneath you, and your hands just slightly into your blue jean pockets. Your shoulders are down and back, and you're gazing out, slightly nodding your head. And as I did this from this dream, and you can do this with any characters in your dream. You can do this with other people in the dream. You can do it with animals. You can do it with other living things like trees or birds or excuse me. You can also do it with inanimate objects. Like you could embody what you see the rock to be, if there's a rock in your dream. And in that being in that place, imagining yourself more than an actor, more like a merging, more like a becoming or a shape-shifting into this other expression that's coming through the dream. It's one of the most direct ways that our body then can give us more access. When you're working with a dream in a way like this, or even through journaling or speaking it out loud, also another practice is to listen for, and I'm saying listen, but I mean sense for body activations. How are you breathing? Did your breath just change? Do you have a sensation somewhere in your body? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it ticklish? Are you cramping? Or do you feel like you just got bigger and without boundaries? Did you get really small? So you can listen to how is my body responding as I'm exploring this aspect of the dream. All right. So those are several ways that practices that you can use to work with them. I want to see if there's anything more to say about, and I'm so new at doing Facebook Lives, excuse me, as I just take a look here and see if I'm missing something. I think we're doing good. And if you're here and I can't see you, it's just because this is a new platform for me. I haven't done Facebook Lives very much yet. All right, so discover how to read symbol and messages in your dreams. So we've touched on this quite a bit. And I'm going to see if there's one other way. Yes, all right. There are aspects of the dream that aren't personalized or humanized, such as, where is the dream? What do you sense about the environment? It's a beautiful place to start even. And then as a dream continues, how is the environment staying the same or changing as well? But the question of where is the dream set? What does it look like? What does it feel like sensation-wise? What are you aware of in colors and shapes, movement, or stillness? Is it in a building? And what kind of building? Is it outdoors? And what kind of outdoors? I had a coaching client many years ago who was having a series of dreams that were set in the attic. And each dream, the content was quite different. And sometimes the attic was different in what was in there or how much of it she could see. But she had many, many dreams in the attic. And so, with that, you can imagine if we just juxtapose a dream in an attic of a building, and this was an attic of a house, it had the dormers, and the pitched roof line was a part of the setting. You can imagine that if you are having a dream set there, or you're having a dream set, let's say, in a football stadium, and whether it's empty or it's full. And is it like a high school football stadium, or is it an NFL football stadium? Or is it a World Cup football stadium? You feel how the size and information about each of those places shifts as we step ourselves into them. And the setting tells us what part of my psyche or my soul am I engaged with here. Same thing with if you're outside, that we can do a kind of a comparison there. Are you like I was in the dream where I'm walking around? Now I sometimes think of that it's literally this house, that I'm walking around the property and taking in all the sights and the spaciousness and the people? Or what if the dream had been I'm walking into an ever narrowing, muddy trail with overgrowth of plant life, and I'm having to push that out of my way? What if I'm on the beach, and from the beach I board a yacht or a rowboat or a canoe, or I realize that I'm dressed for the city, but I'm on the beach and everybody else is in bathing suits? Can you see how the setting itself, together with the colors, shapes, how much of it we see or how much of it we see or experience, are all providing information about where you are in the messaging of the dream? So back to the one we've been using as an example, where I had the dream of coming to tour my new house. That was the opening line. I've come to walk through my new house. So we already know I'm entering a new place to live. Now you can say, oh, a new house, and it literally became my new house. But you could say, I'm moving into a new home base. I've acquired and am moving into something that's new to me, and it's home. It's my surrounding, it's my personal environment. And now you know that, like just that, the dream's already telling a fair amount. And I believe that I've been weaving throughout, as I intended to, ways that this is a mind, body, soul, and heart wisdom expressing through your dreams. It truly is. I say it truly is. And again, this is the if you choose to use and tap into dreams as a way of knowing thyself, as is so much of our mission here at You Are You, and more importantly at New Wisdom, is your soul is speaking to you. This is one of the quintessential languages of the soul, speaking to you through your dreams. Now, how about this? What about the symbols or experiences you have when you are meditating? Are they the same as dreams? Can you work with them the same way? You can work with them the same way. They're not exactly the same as dreams because you haven't slipped into a complete state of sleep, which changes the ego state, I believe. But certainly you can use these same kinds of approaches to working with the sleeping dreams, as well as the visions you have in meditation, or the experiences or imaginations in meditation, in daydreaming, in fantasizing. So that's a great one, right? When people say, oh, I've been having this desire, I've been like, this thing keeps coming up for me that I really want to do. You can take that, or I really want to experience, or I keep imagining myself experiencing, right? You can say things like that, and you can then take that and make that experience that you've just described a dream, and find out what more is there. So an example of that I would share is that a very dear friend of mine, quite a few years ago, was in her early, pushing mid 40s, and she was single, and she really wanted a companion. She wanted her mate. She wanted her soulmate, her twin flame, even. And she wanted to have a baby. And I would visit her, or we would talk on the phone, and she would speak so profoundly and with such longing of her desire to have a baby. Now, her age was starting to already be an issue, and the man she was dating at the time was very clear. He was not having kids, and they weren't actually really getting on that well. So her choices and her desire weren't aligning. And we started to just play around with, what if this desire to have a baby was a dream? I'm not making light of her desire, or that um, profound soul yearning that many women feel, and many don't, to have a baby. But as we explored it as a dream, what we started to explore was, she didn't actually have a dream of being a mother. She had a dream of having a baby. Those are not the same thing. And it gave us some freedom to explore the yearning, the deep yearning, and the way she was attaching it to a very specific outcome, or way of being manifest. And started to let go of that grip a little bit, enough to be able to say, what is it I want to give birth to? I then did an interstate move, and she did a couple of cross-country trips, and we lost touch for a bit. We weren't talking as often, and we weren't just as in touch. So I then heard that she was married. It happened rather quickly, and that in her marriage, they formed a collaboration in their businesses and began to work together. And her business actually became a birthing energy. The way they do business together doesn't create babies, but it does create new life, like awakened life. And so if she had only been really focusing on the baby part of the dream, she probably would have not chosen to be with the man she found, whom she'd already known, by the way. So that's one of the ways that I want to say you can take a kind of a leap of curious, playful, metaphoric exploration into your soul desires, and apply these dream techniques, these practices of working with the language of the soul to those two. You could also do it with movies you watch. Yep. And your reactions to them. And you can do it with your real life waking experiences. Also quite profound. These are some of the things that I've been doing with clients for, I think coming up on 30 years. And the ways that I started doing it was through what was coming through guided meditations. And then I kept expanding and deepening and growing. And you can too. Here's my strong caution in working with your dreams. Please, please, please delay or simply skip looking to dream books, to symbol books, until you have spent time in curious openness with your dreams. When you take an energy that's projected onto it, even from the best books, and I have a couple of really fine dream symbol books, I could recommend them. I hesitate to, simply because I wouldn't want someone to have a dream with a rock with an infinity symbol on it and then run to the book instead of feeling first or asking or being curious about, so what is this rock? And why did I find it? And what does it feel like in my hand? And what had the dreamer pick it up? And what is this symbol that's on it? And what does it mean to me? And how do I have associations with it? Please, please, please do that before you ever consider picking up a dream book or telling someone that you want them to interpret your dream. All right, so there's a dream I heard also about 20 years ago that was told to Carl Jung, who, so this dream is the dream of a man named Max Zeller. And he wrote about this dream that he had once brought to Carl Jung, and about Carl Jung's comments to the dream in 1949. I hear us living more and more fully into what Max Zeller's dream was then. Here's the dream. A temple of vast dimensions was in that process of being built. As far as I could see, ahead, behind, right, left, there were incredible numbers of people building on gigantic pillars. I too was building on a pillar. The whole building process was in its very first beginning, but the foundation was already there. The rest of the building was starting to go up, and I and many others were working on it. Jung said, that is the temple we all build on. We don't know the people because, believe me, they build in India and China and in Russia and all over the world. That is the new religion. You know how long it will take to build this. Do you know how long it'll take until it's built? Jung asked. And Max said, how should I know? Do I know? And Jung's reply said, I know. About 600 years. And Max says, where do you know this from? And Jung's response, from dreams. From other people's dreams and my own, this new religion will come together as far as we can see. We live in extraordinary times. The revitalization and reemergence of tribal consciousness is necessary. We have to value our lives and offer them to our tribes. As we begin, we build on this temple. And as Max Zeller said, each person works on his own pillar until one day the temple will be built. So I say to you, as you are doing your meditation practice, as you are curious about your own dreams and the messages through your soul or through spirit, accessing to wisdom that is beyond what you might otherwise have touched with. Yes, you too are a part of building this temple. That's my life's work, is tending to the temple builders, providing inspiration, intrigue, connection, depth, and love from inside the temple as we erect it. I imagine you are among us, and I'm grateful you are. These are sacred messages from your soul, and I hope you honor them with the same sacredness with which we are building the temple. All right, my friends, it is a joy to be with you and to share this rich, like a drop in the ocean of what's available through your dreams. If you'd like to know more, please message me directly or comment here, and I send you great love. Next time.